Let's talk about why authors use simile and metaphor. We use similes and metaphors every day when we talk to each other. We use expressions like time flies. We don't literally mean that time is flying, but we're comparing time to a bird when we say that, meaning that time is going by so quickly, it's going by like a bird flying across the sky. But why do authors use similes and metaphors and other forms of figurative language? Is it just to make their language more flowery? Authors use simile and metaphor to explain to us abstract things that are hard to wrap our minds around. So they do that by comparing the abstract thing to something concrete, something we're more familiar with and more capable of understanding. So for example, in the metaphor time flies, time, an abstract concept that's kind of difficult to understand, is being compared to a bird that flies through the sky. And so we're able to understand the movement of time in an easier fashion because it's being compared to something that we're familiar with. Figurative language is the language of poetry. Pick up almost any poem and you'll be able to find some kind of figurative language, often simile or metaphor. Let me read a quick example for you, one of my favorite poems by John Ciardi, and see if you can recognize what the metaphor is in this poem. A morning of the life there is to the house, beginning again its clutters. In the sun babbles and sways and tells time from its sailing cribs. Enter three pirate energies to murder sleep. The bed rocks with their boarding. A fusillade of blather sweeps the white decks. We're taken. Good morning, sweet with chains. We win all but the fight. Do as they say. I'll meet you here tonight. Did you catch the extended metaphor in that poem? All the references to a pirate ship? Ciardi and his wife are in bed in the morning, first thing when their three children jump into bed and take over the day. And like little pirates, they're now in charge. Ciardi says to his wife, do as they say, I'll meet you here tonight. It's just a great, sweet little poem of family life, and it's using that extended metaphor of a pirate ship to explain to us something kind of emotional and not exactly easily explained by using a romantic image that we're all familiar with of the pirates boarding the ship. Of course, simile and metaphor are used all the time in fiction as well. Here's one of my favorite recent examples of a simile from Jennifer Egan's novel A Visit from the Goon Squad. This is especially meaningful to people who are familiar with the streets of New York City. She writes, behind the desk was nothing but view, the whole city flung out in front of us the way street vendors fling out their towels packed with cheap, glittery watches and belts. That's how New York looked, like a gorgeous, easy thing to have, even for me. I love that image of standing high in a skyscraper looking out the window over New York City, just the way you might stand on the sidewalk looking over the cheap glittery wares that some street vendor has laid out before you. It's a great way of describing the city because it compares it to something cheap and glittery and yet at the same time completely compelling, something that you really want to have and you can. Incidentally, that passage that I just read, I had copied down in my reading notebook. I have another whole video on how to keep a reading notebook and why you might want to. Once you realize why authors are using similes and metaphors and how they function in a text, you'll be able to pick them out more easily, you'll be able to tell the good ones from the bad ones, and you'll appreciate this figurative language so much more as a reader. Read on!